Yeah, so it's such a great feeling to be here today. It's a great pleasure to introduce the result of our work, and it's really nice to see so many friends and so many users of Zabbix. So thank you very much for coming. Before I start, yeah, Katerina mentioned some things about Summit, but I would like to stress that why Summit? Why it's called Summit this year? It's because we really want to differentiate the conferences and Summit. The Summit is the place where you hear much more information directly from Zabbix team. Well, from myself, from our engineers, from marketing guys, sales, and so on. So this is a place where you may get the up-to-date information directly from Zabbix team, very latest announcements from Zabbix. So this is the place, the hometown of Zabbix, where Zabbix was born actually, and this is the place where Summit is happening. Okay, and also I would like to thank all our sponsors for their continuous support, our gold sponsors and silver sponsors. As you probably know, if you ever organize a conference without help of sponsors, it's really hard, first of all, to make the conference affordable. We don't make any profit on the conferences, believe us. It's so much effort to organize a conference, and help of sponsors is really, really appreciated. So thank you very much. Before I start talking about 4.0, let me go back to now history, and we'll mention some things about 3.0, about the foundation, about the functionality we introduced in 3.0, 3.2, and 3.4 that really created some kind of building blocks. You know these things, it's item preprocessing, dependent items, also event tags, maps and dashboard, when we started migration from kind of per pixel graphics to a vector graphics. And now, again, before starting talking about 4.0, I would like to talk about two things, item preprocessing and dependent items. By the way, how many of you use this functionality in production? Okay, so maybe around half, maybe 40%. But how many of you are on Zabbix 3. Something? Okay, 2 something? Okay, 4.0? Okay, brave hearts. All right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Zabbix item preprocessing and dependent items. I will remind what is it. I think this is a very nice piece of functionality that really creates, makes a difference actually. So suppose you have some data source. In my example, this data source provides us information in a JSON. It could be as well be, XML or CSV, some plain text. And the question is how to extract data out of JSON, how to make it happen, how to get this data and use it in Zabbix. And before preprocessing, the question was really obvious. Well, just use some scripting, yeah? Use Bash script or Python script, integrate it with, I don't know, with Zabbix agent, and you're done. But well, if you ever managed some bigger installation of Zabbix, you know that it's a huge kind of maintenance work and maintenance effort to maintain all those scripts. It's not a good solution. So and what we did, we actually introduced the way how Zabbix may do this work for you. We basically introduced some sort of kind of preprocessing pipeline so that you can create a pipeline, basically pipeline of different operations, and Zabbix would do the transformation, for example, from a JSON, from this thing, to metrics, to metric values that can be used by a monitoring thing for graphs, for triggers, for problem detection, anomaly detection, and so on. So then this is how it works. So we just create a pipeline of operations, very simple operations, like using JSON paths, we just extract the field we want. Then we may just strip some parts of this value. Then we do a hex to decimal conversion. And if this is information in kilobytes, we use also some multiplier to convert it to bytes. So we create kind of preprocessing pipeline, and it's very flexible. In Zabbix, it looks like this. You just go to configuration of an item. And you basically see all those steps. JSON path, then we may do some regular expression or some other operations, hexadecimal. We use a custom multiplier, and this is the way how we get information that can be used by Zabbix. Now, what about kind of getting bulk of data out of some data source? This is a different example. It could be as well be a JSON or XML, whatever. It's just the output of MySQL admin command, which basically give us data in a kind of semi-structured text. So what we see lots of statistics, and it would be nice. It would be really nice to get this data just with one call, with one execution of, say, MySQL admin command, and then extract all this information and split into different metrics, yeah, somehow. And actually, this is exactly the reason why we introduced dependent items, and I will explain briefly how it works. So we have some sort of master item, the item who gets this information. It could be Zabbix agent, Zabbix wrapper, any type of item. And then we also have so-called dependent items. In my case, this is MySQL read operations per second, MySQL queries per second. And those items, those dependent items, they rely on data collected by the master item. They do kind of data extraction themselves, yeah? They rely on data collected by the master item. And it really creates a very nice and efficient monitoring, because with just a single call, we may retrieve a huge JSON, huge XML, or some plain text data, and do some processing and split it into many different items. So let's see how it works. So we have two items. One is MySQL queries per second, another MySQL read operations per second. The definition is very simple. It's just, type, dependent item. It has a reference on a master item to MySQL status. And the magic is in preprocessing. So preprocessing is different. So we use different preprocessing rules for one item and for another item. In first case, we select number of operations per second. In other case, we select number of reads per second. So different regular expression in one item and another item. And now, let's talk about Zabbix 4.0. And actually, again, it's a great feeling to be here today because Zabbix 4.0 was released. Yeah. Otherwise, maybe I wouldn't be so happy. But anyway, 4.0. Actually, this is how Zabbix team looks like just 5 minutes after release. Yeah, so we have a traditional cake, so people are very happy, a little bit of tired, maybe a little some excited. So this is a photo from our Riga office 5 minutes after release. And I should tell you that it's a great honor for me to work with Zabbix team. It's nice people we have. I believe a very kind of friendly and kind of family-like atmosphere in our office. So. Well, it's Zabbix 4.0 is a result of 1 year work of the whole Zabbix team, in Riga, Zabbix team in Tokyo. So let's go to the technical details and start with the new features you may expect in Zabbix 4.0. Performance improvements. Zabbix server and proxy, it's got 10 up to 20% of performance boost, just for free. We used a more advanced kind of locking algorithms that really allows us to do much faster, 10 or 20% faster data processing in Zabbix. So you install Zabbix 4.0, and according to our test we did in our test lab, it will be 10–20% faster, maybe even more, depending on how you use Zabbix. This is especially will be visible to those who are running Zabbix in in a large scale who is doing, I don't know, thousands of values per second, tens of thousands of values per second. Next is the faster processing of problems. In 3.x, if you, and in earlier releases, if you go to the list of items, problems, Zabbix would calculate kind of a problem names and event names as you can see those. So it will take a trigger name, it would extract all, kind of expand all macros. In this case, it's a host name, and then it would display a problem name. All right? So, well, there are two problems. One problem, it is not that efficient. So if you have a huge list of problems, so Zabbix should do lots of processing, yeah? It should expand all those macros. It all relies on the trigger name. And another problem is that if you change a trigger name, event names, even a historical event names will be changed as well. And it's not good. It's kind of, it's not right. So, in Zabbix 4.0, event names are calculated just after event is created. So we create event, we calculate event name or a problem name, and it's a static. We will never change it anymore. So it is static, it is in database, and actually that's why if you're migrating from Zabbix 3.x to Zabbix 4.0, you will notice that your events table and the problems table became a little bit bigger, yeah, because they have now additional attribute which is called name. And it is fast. It is fast because now when we display and when you look at the list of problems, we don't have to kind of do this unnecessary recalculation. We just take this data out of the database and display as it is. And we preserve historical event names, which is really cool. If you ever rename a trigger name, historical event names will stay exactly the same, which is really nice. And actually, this is one of the steps to make event processing in Zabbix kind of more independent. We really want to make event as a kind of independent entity without external references to something else, like in this example, the trigger name. What's next? Faster and more secure distributed monitoring. And what we did, we just basically implemented compression for all server proxy communication. And now, if you install or if you upgrade from earlier releases to 4.0, you go to configuration of proxies, and you will see that there is a column compression, and compression will be on everywhere. There is no kind of a configuration option to switch it off. The only way not to use compression for proxies is just to recompile proxy without compression, yeah? Because we really think that, well, there is no kind of good reason why not use compression. Maybe you may not do it because of some security issues. You really want to have all traffic going in plain text, I don't know. That's why we have this option to recompile a proxy and use it without compression. But other than that, I don't think there are good reasons not to use the compression. Especially taking into account that compression, it really comes for free. You won't notice any measurable CPU, increase of the CPU usage or increase of the memory usage. Even on low-powered hardware like Raspberry Pi, well, there is minor difference with compression or without compression. And that's the graph from our test lab. Basically, this is the left side before, without, basically, data transfer without compression. And on the right side is with compression. So we are transferring exactly the same amount of data. And as you can see, we really need 5 times less bandwidth. And obviously, it's improved data transfer speed, and it really improves the amount of data Zabbix proxy may push to Zabbix server in a certain amount of time. So no impact on CPU memory usage and much better improvement of the transfer speed. Especially if you use some kind of remote location when there is a latency, yeah, and latency latency kills performance, yeah. So if there is a latency, you will notice the difference immediately. So what else? More secure proxies. For proxies, for proxy communication, we may also validate incoming IP addresses. For example, for active proxies, it's configured on the Zabbix server side. We just configure proxy address. It could be a network mask or a list of IP addresses or DNS name. And then Zabbix would verify that this connection comes from this certain proxy. Yeah, so it's very, very good. For passive proxies, it works in a kind of opposite way. For passive proxy, Zabbix server communicates to proxy, so proxy has to verify, is it coming from a valid IP address or not? So that's why the parameter server and proxy configuration file, it's now mandatory, yeah? So you have to specify it. And Zabbix proxy, passive proxy would check, would verify that the server is, this connection which came from the server is correct, is valid. So what else? Better integration options. Actually, there are many different ways how to integrate Zabbix with other systems. You may use Zabbix API. You may do some custom data collection. But now I'll talk about the storages. And you probably know that Zabbix may run and use 4 storages at the moment. It is MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, and DB2. And by the way, how many of you run Zabbix on MySQL? Okay, and Postgres? Maybe like 50-50 or 60-40, 60 for MySQL and 40 for Postgres. Oracle or DB2? Okay, a few. All right. Yeah, okay, no, that's absolutely fine. Actually, we have customers and pretty big customers running on Oracle and running on DB2, so it's also safe choice. Maybe, well, more expensive choice, sorry. But it's still okay to run Zabbix on Oracle and DB2. So in later releases of 3.4, we introduced support of experimental support of the Elasticsearch. And I have to say that support of Elasticsearch is still experimental. Yeah, it is still experimental feature. So kind of use at your own risk. We are still thinking, is it a good backend or it's not good backend for Zabbix. But if we enable support of Elasticsearch, it would allow us to keep historical data in Elasticsearch, basically. So instead of keeping it in a SQL database, you keep it in Elasticsearch. And actually, you may choose what kind of information you want to keep in Elasticsearch. So there is a fine-grained control. Yeah? So for example, you may say, OK, I'd like to keep string data, text data, log data in Elasticsearch. The rest goes to traditional relational database, and you can do it. And I think the typical use case for use of Elasticsearch is Elasticsearch can be used as a quite good middleware, yeah, for integration with other systems. For example, some analytic tools, or maybe it could be BI tools, a business intelligence, or some more advanced visualization software. In Zabbix 4.0, we introduced another alternative how to push data to external kind of storages. And I think it might be a better alternative if you really want to have data collected by Zabbix pushed to somewhere else. Push to the same Elastic or push to, I don't know, Hadoop, push to some streaming engine, whatever. So what we did, we implemented kind of a data duplication of the historical data. So what does it mean? It means that all data collected by Zabbix can be also stored in a local file system in a kind of in a plain text format. So basically, Zabbix would write historical data to two destinations. One is a database, okay, some let's say traditional database, and another is local storage. Why local storage? Because it's really kind of a fast way. It's a very reliable way and it doesn't affect performance of Zabbix very much, maybe a little bit. So, and this is basically how it works. So Zabbix would write information just as it receive it, basically in real time. It will store it in a relational database. It will store it in a history, trends, and events file. So it works for historical data and for events as well. Yeah, and then you may write your own scripts. We haven't created kind of official integrations yet. Maybe they are coming in the future. But at least we created some sort of framework you can use to get grab this data from those files and push it to somewhere else. Hadoop, Elastic, or Vertica, I don't know, maybe some kind of streaming engine like Kafka, and so on. And the format of those files is very simple, yeah? So for history data, we basically gives you all information you may need. It's like a host name, groups, applications, the item ID or metric ID, name, timestamp, and received value. Same for trends. And for events and problems, we have more details there. We have also, well, name obviously, the host, where it happened, the groups, it's like a membership of the host, and also the tag information. So tags are very, very important. It really may give you a very good kind of, if you're doing some analytics on the problem happening in Zabbix, it's really, tags may give you a very good dimension how to figure out what are your pain points in your IT infrastructure. All right, so this is very, very nice. What else? More flexibility and less restrictions. At Zabbix, we're always trying to think, okay, how to make Zabbix more flexible. Since Zabbix is a universal solution, it's not only used for a single kind of narrow use case or a set of use cases. Zabbix is used for many, many, many different things. So we are always thinking how to make it much more flexible, yeah? And how to maybe eliminate some restrictions we had before. So there is a list of features I'd like to talk about that really kind of improve Zabbix. The control unit conversion is a very small feature, but it really allows us to switch on or switch off the functionality when Zabbix adds some prefixes like kilo, mega, giga, tera, and so on. So using exclamation mark, you just switch off this functionality. Okay? If you want TPS converted to kilo transactions per second, okay, just push TPS as a units. If you don't want it, just use exclamation mark and Zabbix won't do any conversion. Another very small change is ability to specify multiple IP addresses for when you configure media type for emails. So instead of having one email, you may basically use multiple emails. And there are two use cases. One use case when I have two email boxes, one say in Gmail, another in a company mail, and I want all messages on alerts to be delivered into two emails, well, kind of simultaneously. Okay, you can do it. Another use case when I want also messages which are coming to myself, kind of carbon copied to a group of people, maybe to some DevOps guys or sysadmin guys. So if a problem is escalated, say, to my level, then I really want to make sure that it's also kind of copied to admins. Okay, just a very minor feature, but it might be very useful. More flexible auto-registration. So, and let me remind you what is auto-registration. How many of you use auto-registration, by the way? Okay, so quite a few, yeah. So this change, I guess, will be very, very useful. So let me remind you what is auto-registration. Suppose you have a new host, maybe somewhere in the cloud or in your infrastructure, and you don't want to configure all this new host manually in Zabbix. So what you do, you just set up an active agent on this host, and then just specify IP address of Zabbix server, and as soon as this host is up and running, it will connect to Zabbix server. It will send also host metadata, like in this case, Apache/MySQL. It's just a plain text string. You may put any information you want there. Yeah, in my case, it's Apache/MySQL. And Zabbix server is clever enough to look at the host metadata and figure out, okay, this host is running Apache, it's running MySQL, so I have to link it to template MySQL, template Apache. And just we'll add it to two host groups, web servers and database servers. But the problem is, what if the same host changes its role? Now it's a database server, but then we want to run something else. We want to run a JBoss on the same host, same IP address, same host name, and now we have kind of a possibility to change a role, to kind of to relink, make kind of relinkage of templates the host already uses, and also change host group membership as well. So this is, well, very nice. So your server is different now. It's running different application. So Zabbix may figure out and do this relinkage. What else? Check now for items. Okay, check now button. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, okay. Sorry guys, don't be so excited, yeah? Because, yeah, okay, so we have a check now for items. We have it also for discovery rules. You may check now kind of force execution of a check by pressing check now button for individual item or individual low-level discovery rule, or you may select a number of items or discovery rule and do some kind of mass update check now. The problem is it doesn't work in all cases. For example, if I just created item and I press check now button, well, it won't work. I will explain why. Also, if you modified something in item, you press check now button, it probably won't work as well. It's too bad, yeah. The reason why is because the check now, as it's implemented right now, it relies on the data in the configuration cache. So it doesn't take information what is stored in the database. So we have kind of middle level, the configuration in a Zabbix database. So this is a primary source of configuration data. Then we have information which is stored in memory for higher efficiency of Zabbix server. So this is so-called configuration cache. So when you press a check now button, Zabbix will rely on information from configuration cache. So in order to make it work, what you have to do in order to make it kind of reliable, you have to reload configuration cache first and then press check now button, which I understand it's not good. But it covers one interesting use case. For example, if you have a low-level discovery rule which is supposed to be executed, say, once per day, yeah, you have this rule, but now you want to just execute it right now. So that will work absolutely fine. So we are still trying to find a way how to support check now button in most possible use cases, but there are some kind of technical limitation which are kind of hard to avoid at this moment. It's related to kind of a partial update of the configuration cache. So we don't do partial updates of configuration cache. We do it as a one block. Yeah, this is the reason why it's not so easy to implement. Anyway, I think there will be some improvements coming in next releases. Inventory macro support and event tags. Also a very nice improvement. What it allows us to use basically inventory information in a problem tags or event tags. So for example, in host inventory, I have a location, which is New York 2. And then in the configuration of triggers, I use tags. And by the way, how many of you takes advantage of tags, of problem tags? Yeah, maybe not so many, but this is a really, really powerful feature. Absolutely, yeah. So in the configuration of triggers, you may specify some tags. Like in my case, okay, this is environment production. It's a service Jira, and data center is basically a pointer to inventory information. So the value for the data center will be taken from a host inventory. Yeah, you don't have to maintain it manually in the triggers anymore. So it will be maintained by an inventory. And then when problems are generated, like in this case, you would say, okay, I have this problem in production environment with the service Jira, and the data center is in New York too. yeah, which is, well, really, really cool. So you have a kind of a good visibility of what service is affected. Is it production environment or maybe some staging or test environment, and which data center is affected. That's very, very nice. What's next? Acknowledgements. You probably know what is acknowledgement, yeah? So as soon as we have a problem, we may click on the problem and acknowledge it. The problem is that when I acknowledge a problem, I have to specify a message. Sometimes I don't have any message to specify. So what I do, I just, I don't know, write 1, 2, 3 or QWERTY, whatever, and it's not good, yeah, because message is mandatory right now. And from the other hand, sometimes I don't really want to acknowledge a problem. I just want to write a message to my colleagues saying something that, oh, hey guys, hang on, I'm working on this, or well, don't worry, or I will look at this problem in 5 minutes, something like that. Also, it wasn't possible in 3.x. Now it's all possible. So both message and actions and manual operations or actions are optional. So you may leave a message without making any operations. Or you may do some operation like acknowledge a problem or close a problem. Remember that starting from 3.4, you have ability to close problem manually, yeah? If it's allowed on trigger level, yeah? So there is a control as well. And the 4.0 comes with ability to change severity of the problem manually, which I think is very, very nice feature. So your operations, well, network operations guys, they see, okay, we've got a kind of maybe not so critical problem, but it appeared to be very, very critical. So now you may go to Zabbix UI and change the severity of the problem to critical manually, if you're allowed to do so. So you require read-write permissions. So, and this is, well, that's how it works. I think it really allows us to create a kind of much more flexible problem workflows. You may define how you would like to work with the problem resolution in a much more efficient way. So basically, that's how it looks like in a problem view. We have many kind of problems. Information about tags. Now you have this. Well, there is a well-known kind of acknowledge columns and also some actions. And there are some different icons. And if you mouse over on those icons, you can see what really happened, the whole timeline, what happened with this problem. First, the problem was generated, then some email message was sent to, well, to Zabbix admin. Then again, the Zabbix admin wrote a message, and he acknowledged the problem, he wrote another message, and then he increased the severity of the problem. Okay, so it's very clear, and you see a very kind of detailed timeline when problem happened and what happened with this problem later on. So this is very, very, very nice feature. Actually, there are many icons. Like if a remote command was executed, we have a special icon. When a new comments, when the problem severity increase, decrease, so we have a different icons. Problem acknowledged, problem generated, recovery of the problem, so it's all, we have kind of a special icons, and if you work quite frequently with the Zabbix UI, I think it's really easy to kind of memorize and to use this information kind of instantly. What else? Tag-based permissions. They're not really permissions, it's basically functionality is about filtering problems based on tags. This is very, very powerful feature. In Zabbix, as you probably know, we already have quite comprehensive user rights, yeah? So it's kind of, you may, basically we define permissions for user group based on a host groups. For one host group, you give read permissions. For another host group, you may give some read-write permissions or deny permissions, so on and so forth. Now, on top of that, we built another layer, which is kind of, which creates some sort of tag-based filtering for problems. So it affects how we display problems and nothing else. So it's all about problem displaying. So let's have a look at this example. Suppose I want to give one user group permissions to see problems with only affecting service Jira, if a tag is equal to Jira, and what is happening in a production environment, in the United States. So this is a host group, yeah? So basically specify a combination of a host group and a tag, okay? Like in this case, end user services and service Jira. So this information is from tags, and host group a region / USA and environment production. And this user group won't see anything else. They will see only their own problems. Problems from production with Jira. And that's it. And it affects, as I said, only problems, only the way how you access problems and display problems. So you go to, say, to the dashboard, or you go to, I don't know, to the monitoring problems or overview, screens map, and you won't see any other problems. You see only, well, data center New York 2, environment production. Oh, sorry, the filtering was based on Jira and production, but okay, highlighting is a little bit wrong, but still, data center New York 2 and the service Jira. That's what you are going to see, nothing else, nothing else. Tag filters. Basically, two use cases for using tag filters, I believe. One is the kind of most straightforward, is a different problem queue for different groups of users. Yeah, so we have kind of application owner for Jira. Okay, let them see problems with Jira only. We have network operation guys dealing with production problems, and they don't care about staging or some other systems. They will deal with the production-related issues only. You have guys who are responsible for a certain data center or certain location. Okay, you may do this problem filtering right now. And also actions rely on this. They are affected by tag filters. Okay, if you are not allowed to see problems from production, you won't see it. If you're allowed to see it only for service Jira, you will get notifications only coming from service Jira. That's very, very powerful. So think about it, and I'm pretty sure it can be used in so many ways for your Zabbix setups. HTTP check. So we introduced a new item type, which is called HTTP agent. And this is kind of a native way how to get information out of HTTP data sources. And it will allow us monitoring content of web application, obviously. It will give us access to HTTP header files. But most importantly, it will allow Zabbix now and in the future, maybe in a much more kind of straightforward way, monitoring of getting data out of various APIs. Kind of REST APIs based on JSON RPC, XML SOAP, well, Prometheus, whatever. Yeah, so it will be absolutely it's possible, and it's already possible. So, and the typical HTTP processing will look like this. We have an item, kind of, which is now kind of HTTP agent, the type of HTTP agent. It would make HTTP or HTTPS connection to somewhere. It would get some data back. Could be JSON, XML, CSV, well, whatever, some plain text. It will do some pre-processing, and based on XPath, JSON path, or regex, it would extract some useful information. And obviously, if we combine it with dependent items, we may just execute one HTTP check, get method or post method, whatever, get bunch of data with one call, and then split it into a number of different metrics, different items. So this creates a way of very efficient monitoring of top-on HTTP protocols. And HTTP item types is really, really flexible. We really want to make sure that there are no limits. Yeah. So You obviously specify URL, you specify the query fields, you may choose what is a request type, the timeout on per item level, you specify request body type, it can be raw data, JSON, XML, headers, you have total control of headers. So for example, if you have some authentication ID or things for, well, some tokens for authentication, you may put them into header, no problem at all. It's all supported. You specify required status code, follow redirects or not, what you would like to retrieve, body headers or body and headers. So it's all under your absolute control. Yeah, and obviously also support HTTP proxies and all the certificates could be configured as well. Next, accessibility and usability. And actually, there are a number of improvements. One is really kind of a simple one. It's just the kiosk mode for the dashboard. In a normal view, we display so many information like, I don't know, some menu, like filters and so on. In a full screen mode, there is no menu, but you still have this kind of top level information. But now in a kiosk mode, which is kind of distraction-free mode, you don't want to see information which is not related to the data you see. We don't display any headers, we don't display any footers. So as simple as that. Compact view for problems. This is another enhancement, which is a little bit hidden. It's, you may find it under monitoring problems. If you go to monitoring problems filter, there is a compact view and a number of other options. But I think quite powerful option is a combination of the compact view and a highlight whole row. So a compact view for problems is created to display as many problems as we can on a one screen. Yeah. So for those who are migrating from kind of traditional monitoring tool from big vendors, they normally have some sort of view. So you will feel like at home. And this is basically how it looks like. So if you use this combination, compact view and highlight the whole row, and then you use kind of, well, sorting by severity. So highest severity problems are on top. You see a very clear view. Yeah. So what is the most important, less important, even less important, and maybe not important as well. So you can kind of see immediately what, how many problems, most important problems I have now. So, and our goal was to display at least 50 problems on a kind of a standard full HD monitor with one problem per line. And this is really optimized for those people who work and deal with the problem on a daily basis. Yeah, so no guys, they really want to understand what's going on with what problems less important, maybe not that important. So this is very, very nice view. New time selector. Okay, this is the old one. So you have this, well, this scroll, and you just using this scroll, kind of zooming in, zooming out. It has been replaced with a new design. Actually, some people, I already heard some complaints from people that, okay, please, please get back the old, give us back the old scroll, yeah, because the new one maybe doesn't cover some of the use cases, yeah. But I still believe maybe I think the new kind of time selector will be improved in the future. But I think this is really kind of a nice way how to navigate in the graph. So there are a number of predefined periods. You may choose time using calendar, no problem. This functionality is still there, and yeah. So just one click, and you go to yesterday, to today, and well, I believe it is very nice. And also you could see selected period here, yeah, in a human readable format. So if you selected last 5 minutes, it will be displayed. It will be displayed there. So what else? Graph widget and improvements for the dashboard. But I am not going to kind of spoil the presentation which is coming today. Yeah, about the visualization things in Zabbix. But I want to say that this is another kind of step of moving from per pixel graphs to to kind of more advanced vector graphs in Zabbix. Yeah, so this is one of the steps, and there will be more steps in the future. So the graph widget is much more flexible now. It has ability to display problems, has ability to use the patterns of items. So you don't specify exact items which needs to be displayed, but you just define a pattern. Yeah, so you may push a pattern. And there are many, many different things. So once again, there will be a presentation about it today, so stay tuned. Accessibility and usability. Actually, and that was one of the reasons why release of 4.0 was delayed. We actually put a huge effort making sure that Zabbix UI is optimized for assistive technologies and for visually impaired people. So basically, what does it mean? It means that, okay, if you have some issues to recognize, you don't have kind of perfect vision, and you have some troubles differentiate different colors, like, I don't know, red and blue or green or something like that. So many people, especially the visually impaired people, they use a screen reader software. Screen reader, this is a piece of software that basically reads what is on the screen. And screens needs to be prepared in a certain way, otherwise it won't work well. They will read some kind of garbage from the screen, right? So we reviewed all UI to make sure that Zabbix UI is ready for visually impaired people. And also, we introduced two new themes. One is a high contrast light. As you can see, in even in high contrast light, we display things differently. Yeah, so it's really easy to spot what's going on here. Yeah, so we use a special icons with a different shape, and again we also have high contrast dark, and also we made sure that all Zabbix screen can be navigated using keyboard only. So no mouse, just a keyboard. The only exceptions are at this moment is a map editor. Yeah, so it's a little bit difficult to make it right now. Okay. What's next? UI is getting simpler, so you won't find monitoring triggers anymore, okay? In 3.x, you would see monitoring dashboard, monitoring problems, monitoring triggers, and I think it was a great source of confusions because for some people it's really maybe not so easy to understand. What's the difference between a trigger and a problem? Because in most cases, a trigger and problem kind of the same thing. But I think the difference is very simple. Trigger is just a source of a problem. Yeah, this is an entity which generates a problem, and there could be other entities, like for example, SNMP traps. So device itself generate a problem, or maybe a human may just generate a problem. He can create a new problem. Yeah, this functionality is not there in Zabbix, but I believe it's coming. So I think it's really not a good way to expose information about triggers. It's kind of implementation details to end users. So users are interested in events, in the problems, in the historical information. So that's why, but don't worry, triggers are still there. They're just hidden under configuration. So that's exactly the reason why we made a decision to remove information about triggers from a monitoring. So now, but there is no kind of regression in a functionality. All functionality supported by monitoring triggers is now supported by monitoring problems. So exactly the same. Another usability improvement is that all mandatory fields marked now, so you can see those. Okay, the name, key, host interface, update interval, mandatory fields. The other fields are optional. Small change, but very, very nice. Filtering by tags. So we introduced a filtering by tags. If you go to monitoring problems, or you use a problem widget in dashboard, you may see that filtering options are very kind of flexible, kind of super flexible, especially the filtering by tags. So you may specify a number of tags, you may specify what condition should be used, and or on or. You may see how many tags should be displayed, none, 1, 2, 3, tag names, full, shortened, or none. And also you may display, well, you may specify tag display priority. Sometimes you want to see some of the tags first, the most important tags first. And there are some other things like a compact view. I already told about this, highlight whole row, and showing suppressed problems. So we'll talk about suppressed in a few seconds. And show and acknowledged only. Those are the older options we had. So discovered item filtering, under configuration of items, we have a new filter, which kind of minor change, but still very useful. So you can filter by the discovery status. Is it kind of item which is kind of is native item, kind of normal item, ordinary item, or it is a result of a low-level discovery. Host filtering. So under host filtering, now it's very easy to filter hosts which belong to a specific proxy, yeah, or which are monitored by server only. This is especially useful when you want to move hosts from one proxy to another. So what you do, you filter by one proxy, you select all hosts, and using mass update, you just move all hosts from one proxy to another. Very, very nice feature. So no twin box controls. Well, remember those twin box, yeah? It has always been kind of a great source of confusion, so it's really was quite difficult to understand what's going on here. So we have two lists of groups, and it's not straightforward. Why it's some complex? So they're being replaced with the multi-selects. So I believe it's faster. It works much faster because we don't have to basically display those large lists, and it works in a much better way. More flexible maintenance. In Zabbix, it was one of the most kind of voted feature requests. Please give us trigger level maintenance. But we decided to make it even better. Instead of implementing trigger level maintenance, we implemented a tag level maintenance. So in addition to specifying host group and a host, you may also specify a number of tags. For example, if I want to put the whole ERP service in maintenance, what I do, okay, I just specify, okay, region Europe, all right. So the Europe ERP, it goes, and if it's in a production environment, it goes to maintenance. Yeah, really, really cool. So you may pull to maintenance the whole data center, service, maybe an individual trigger, anything you want. So there is a very granular support, granular maintenance, which is based also now optionally on a problem tags. Suppressed. When a problem is is discovered, but now it's a maintenance time, problem is marked as being suppressed. Okay, so now we have a new term in Zabbix 4.0, suppressed problem. Okay, suppressed basically means that it's not supposed to be displayed because we know that the host is in maintenance or the ERP is in maintenance. We don't want to display problem happening with the ERP system. So these are suppressed problems, and suppressed problems would be displayed like this. Okay, and the filtering option, you have a choice. You may display suppressed problem, or you may kind of hide suppressed problems. It is so you have kind of better control now. Single sign-on. Another nice feature which we implemented, I think, in the latest beta of Zabbix 4.0 is basically ability to use kind of external authentication source. So now, if you have a look at administration authentications, there is a tab, HTTP setting, and you may specify, say, default login form, Zabbix login form, and it will look like this. So Zabbix will ask you for username and password for internal authentication if it's still enabled. And also there is a sign-in, well, it's named sign-in with HTTP, probably the wording maybe could be better, but still sign-in with HTTP, and basically it means that Zabbix would expect authentication coming from a web server itself. Yeah, so web server should provide us with the username and tell that, okay, this user is authenticated. That's absolutely fine. And this is a way how to make a single sign-on with Zabbix, and probably with a little bit of scripting, or maybe you can use existing models. I really need to double check it. It's probably the way how you may implement two-factor authentication with Zabbix. What else? Just a few minor enhancements. The database down message, if database, as you probably know, if database goes down, Zabbix will send you a message, okay, something wrong with the database is down. Now it will give you much more detailed information. What database, why it happened, what is the error message we received from the database engine. Well, very useful, it really saves time of Zabbix admins. There are a number of item improvements, so just have a look at the release notes for a complete list, but what I like most, I think, this check. This is VFS dir count. It basically recursively count a number of entities in a given directory. Number of files, number of symbolic links, number of directories, anything you want. And obviously you may specify patterns, you may specify how deep you want to go. Yeah, you don't really want to, I don't know, to use VFS dir count for root file system. Yeah, it won't work very well. Yeah, but maybe for smaller file systems it will be absolutely fine. And there are some other improvements. And more. So please have a look at the release notes, because release notes contains the full information about the whole scope of features we're introducing in Zabbix 4.0. Upgrade. Just a few words about upgrade. Well, as usually, just install new binaries, new front-end files, and new server binaries. Zabbix server and Zabbix proxy, new front-end files, and you're done. But maybe before doing this, please double check that we have packages for your distribution. Yeah, for like if you're running on Debian, some Debian distributions are already deprecated, or some Red Hats and CentOS or Ubuntu. So please double check if packages are officially available from our website. Also be aware that we don't maintain backward compatibility for proxies. You have to upgrade Zabbix server and Zabbix proxy in one go. And important thing, just some important notes, that Zabbix agents older than 1.4 are no longer supported. So this is the first time in Zabbix history when we say that older agents are not supported. 1.4, I think these are agents which, I guess, 10 years old, or maybe something like 10 years old agents. It's because they used kind of not very efficient and not really kind of good communication protocol, yeah? Without a header, without the specifying length of the message, and it created some kind of significant problems. So we decided, okay, maybe it's time to drop support of the older protocol. So older agents will not work, and if you have some scripts which uses older protocol, so be careful about it. Yeah, just make sure that those scripts will be using a new protocol. Also, another, I think, quite important, but maybe not that important, because we still continue to support macros $1, $9 in item names, but they are deprecated. So please don't use them anymore. I think we'll drop support of those macros in Zabbix 5.0 completely. Yeah? And obviously, read release upgrade notes. Upgrade notes contains the complete information of what kind of issues and what maybe kind of compatibility issues you may have when you're migrating from earlier releases to 4.0. And yeah, before I finish, I'd like to tell you that there will be much more talks directly from Zabbix team. So please stay tuned. 3 talks today and 3 more talks tomorrow. So, well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexei.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I don't know if you have any time for questions.
Yes, we have time for questions. So, questions from the application, please.
Hello. I don't know how many time we have, so there will be only a few questions from the community, and then the mic will be go to the auditorium. So the first one and the most popular is faster processing of problems. Yeah. What about a live view of item.lastValue in the problems view, which provided a live view of problematic problems? In a long story short, what happens with the item.lastValue macro in the problems right now?
Oh yeah, so maybe it's it's really hard to give a short answer, but yeah, this is one of things which are mentioned in the Zabbix upgrade notes. As you probably know, in a trigger name, you could use 2 macros in addition to other macros. Item value and item last value. So item value is a value at the moment when problem, no, I think value, last value. Yeah, value, the value of the metric at the moment when problem happened. And last value is a kind of most recent value, what we have in a system right now. So now we are losing the possibility to use last value. So last value is basically the same as a value because we kind of calculate event name at the moment when problem is generated. Yeah, so basically we are losing this ability in Zabbix 4.0. We are thinking of maybe creating some workaround in a later releases of 4, but we will think about it. Yeah, this is kind of regression in the functionality, unfortunately, yeah.
Thank you for answering.
One more question.
One more question is, does changing of the problem severity, will it fires up in actions?
No, yeah. So the way how it's designed currently, as soon as we have a new problem, we immediately start kind of the escalation process, yeah? And if you change the severity of problems, the escalation process will go on based on the original severity of the problem. Okay, this is how it's designed right now. I don't know if there will be any changes in the future, but that's how it's going to work.
Okay, one more question from the audience, and that unfortunately will be the last one for this break, but I'm sure you will have more time during the coffee break.
I have a question. Okay. I have a question related to after registration. As you said before, it's possible to change host metadata property in configuration file of agent, and it will change templates and groups and etc. Yeah?
Yes.
And will it be possible, for example, host have 2 roles? Will it be possible to put in host metadata 2 roles of this server and to use 2 after registration rules?
Yeah, absolutely. So you may have as many auto registration rules as you want, yeah. And as soon if the kind of auto registration event matches 2 auto registration rules, so both 2 will be executed.
So Zabbix just put templates that related to one of the registration rules and to another registration rules, and delete any other templates from this server.
Not exactly. I think you should specify that this. Yeah, so this is a good question. I don't really want to provide some incorrect information.
Okay, will you answer me a little bit later?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no problem.
You.
I think I need to consult my colleagues. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.